You're listening to Double Time, your daily accessible technology show. Now, here's your hosts, Stephen Scott and Shaun Preece.
Oh, hello. Shaun Preece, I haven't done that in a while.
I've missed that.
I know.
And it's so contradictory to how you were just before we hit record. You sound so awake and alive, Stephen Scott. Well done, you.
I love that you give away our state secrets.
What a professional state. Yes, the double tap state.
Yeah, that's right. Always professional around here. I think I tweeted out yesterday, some podcasts are thoughtful, some are educational, and then there's double tap, where we talk about mince and the appropriate way of disposal.
Mince Monday. Have we heard from Mr. F?
We absolutely have, yes. Mr. F has been in touch. He didn't listen to the show yesterday, and I stupidly said, hey, did you check out today's show? We talked about mince. The topic.
Why
I said
did you
the topic,
point that
not
out?
the show. The show is not mince. The topic was mince. And his response was, it was a very simple, a very elegant, very concise response.
Uh-oh.
I'm so glad Shaun keeps you on the rails. That was the only response I got. I was in bed when that came in, and I was hiding under the duvet reading that. I was like, I'm getting in trouble.
Who would have thought it? Who knew that I was the professional? Who? That is the state of double tap at the minute. Unbelievable.
That's what we've gotten to. How are you? You all right?
I'm very good. Yes, thank you. I've got no interesting stories. I haven't fallen over anything. I haven't got lost. Although, saying that, on my dog walking adventures yesterday, I got to the... Thank you. No, I don't... Okay. I want a larger dog sound effect. I'll be honest with you.
I'll look at that one. Sorry.
But
it doesn't go any further than that.
I got to the end of my road and I stopped, as is my wont, at the curb, right, ready to cross the road. And all of a sudden, I heard just to the left of me, slightly up the road, someone say, whoa, 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 blind man, be careful.
Were they alerting you to another blind man?
No.
No.
What it was someone was leaving someone's house and they were in the car. I heard it idling. They were in the car and they were saying their goodbyes. And the person on the sidewalk was warning the person in the car that there was a blind man in front. And I smiled and I gave a little thumbs up and everything. But you know what? After I crossed the road, I thought, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Is that really appropriate just to shout that out? I don't know. Am I being oversensitive? I thought, that's a little bit weird, isn't it? Blind man.
Well, I mean,
It's kind of to the point and, factual, but it just seemed a little bit, be careful. Surely there's someone crossing the road would have been enough.
Well, I'll just take you at your word on this, because I remember when we had this conversation about blind pride, that you said, I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed. I'm proud. Yes. I don't think you said you were proud, but I think, I sort of said that.
No, your deliberate misunderstanding about what pride means in that context, we can get into another day. Oh, that was a little bit vicious.
Wow.
Off.
Meow.
Happy Tuesday.
I need a cat sound effect on that one. A saucer of milk for table one for Mr. Preece over here. Oh, come on. I mean, it's like, well, look, I mean, he's telling the individual, look out, there's a blind man. What's wrong with that?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm asking the question. It did make me go, ooh, I'm not sure. I mean, would they say, watch out, there's a fat man crossing the road, for example? But is that okay? I'm not saying it's wrong. I mean, again, factually accurate. I don't think it was said with any meanness. So it's fine. It just seemed a little bit weird.
I think that's the difficulty a lot of people have when it comes to blindness, isn't it? Because on one hand, you think, well, okay, look, I'm blind, get over it, I'm fine with it now, or whatever. I've gotten used to it. It's my life. In some ways, I'm kind of embracing it. I hear a lot of that. Then you get to the extremes, I think, and I do call it the extremes when you talk about pride and sort of marching down the street, waving a banner, probably upside down, that says, I'm proud of being blind. And, whatever. But the thing is, I think for me, it's like, well, if you are blind and that's what you are, then that's what you are, right? I just don't think calling it out is necessarily a bad thing. And you know why they're doing it. That's the point. Again, everything's contextual. It's all contextual.
It is.
If someone just pointed at you in the street and said, blind, you'd be like, that's a bit weird. And that's a little bit, almost suspicious, right? If someone did that. I had someone years ago who came right up to it. I remember this was maybe, almost 20 years ago. And I was walking down the street, I had my cane, and I had a bit more vision.
You must
then.
have only been 5.
That's right.
Stephen
Thank
Scott,
you,
something
Sean,
like
thank you.
that, surely.
Oh, you're too kind, honestly.
Making it up.
You make me blush. I tell you, if only you could make me blush, I could get rid of this white, horrible, pale blue skin that I have. It's not even white; it's pale blue.
You look like a Smurf.
Exactly.
Okay,
That's
carry
right.
on.
That's the Scottish temperature I live in. But I remember walking down the street. This guy came up to me, and he literally stops. He stopped me. So I put his hand on my chest, stopped me, and came right up to my face, and sort of almost like looking into my eyes to see if he could see anything, and he just walked away.
Perhaps he worked for the social. Perhaps he was
that's
double
the new
checking.
thing. Yeah, I think that's the new. It's a new way of doing it.
A medical
Just
checkup.
literally
live.
look into your eyes. If there's any sign of life in there, benefits, welfare checks cancelled. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying it was wrong. I just thought that just seems slightly strange. And you're right, though. Maybe it's to do with I still don't like being pointed out as a blind man.
Yeah.
Maybe it's still that I don't consider myself a blind man when I absolutely am.
We're getting
Maybe it is
psychological
acceptance. I don't know.
again.
Let's get on that couch.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean, it
thank
is
you.
interesting because, it's like you've said yourself, you're beginning to embrace the darkness.
I love it. Yeah.
But
love
it's such a weird thing to say, isn't it? I love that. Do you know,
Life is so much easier now, I've got to say.
well, this is the thing, and it's funny because I don't feel that way in my life at all, but that's because I'm still the car kind of teetering on the edge of falling off the cliff, right? And I don't know if I ever will fall off that cliff. And it's not that I want to fall off that cliff. This is the strange mental gymnastics you play.
It's the Italian job,
Yeah.
right? We're teetering over the edge of a cliff and you don't know what's going to happen.
I'm not,
Which way do you
I'm
want
not
to go?
going to go out of my way to make myself blind.
No, of course
I'm not going to do something to myself to cause it. But if it happened, I don't think I would be quite as concerned about it as perhaps I would have thought I would have been maybe 10 years ago. And that's very hard for some people to hear. And it's funny, I've been having so many conversations this week about interviews we're planning, and the amount of perspectives on this are just vast. And of course, it's because we all have different views. We all come to this at different points. I will say though, even though I think we have different views on this, I think it's the views are different depending on where you are on the journey, if you like. Because I think if you're at the point where you've just been told you're losing your vision, and there's nothing, anyway, like we said yesterday, no one can do anything, that's it. Then I think you kind of, your view will be very negative at that point. And that makes total sense. And the idea of listening to someone say, "I love my blindness, it's great," is a complete no. I'm kind of joking because what I mean by that is
that is what I said.
Yeah, well, no, I know, but what I'm saying is, I think people who hear that might rightfully think, well, that's a bit weird. But that's your perspective at the point of the journey you're on, and that person who feels the way they feel today may eventually feel that way, but it will take a lot of time and effort. And I think the problem we have in our society is the bit in between isn't really discussed. And I think that's the problem for me. When I think about organizations who, look after people who are blind, or, who supposedly represent people who are blind, they often miss that point out. They don't talk about the mental health. They don't talk about the gymnastics that we play in our own heads, trying to understand this thing and come to terms with it. In a world where we're told, well, once you've got the skills, I mean, it's such a strange thing, isn't it? On one hand, you've got, you feel your life is over, and then suddenly you start to learn how maybe a smartphone works, and maybe you meet other blind people, and suddenly you're in a room of people who are now telling you, well, once you've got all these skills, you're fine, that's it, you can just get on with your life and get a new job, and come on, just get on with it. And you suddenly think, hang on a minute, I haven't had time to grieve here, and I also don't know if I should grieve here. And it's all this going on in your head. It is, honestly, it's so vital that these conversations happen. But it does, and I think it points out the fact to you, what happened yesterday, that actually, let's be honest, you may have come to terms to some degree with it, but there's always part of you that perhaps didn't like hearing it from someone else. Because it's one thing you recognizing it. It's like, I'm overweight, right? I know I'm overweight. I know I could lose weight. I'm okay with it. People that say, oh, you must lose weight because then you'll feel happier. And I'm like, I've always been happy. I mean, aren't all overweight people happy?
Oh, you're jolly.
Exactly. So I'm happy, right? And I thought I felt I was happy. And then people start to make me feel like I shouldn't be happy. But then if someone else says to you, putting on the weight there, Stephen, How dare you? Do you know what I mean?
Again, though, you're right. It's all contextual. It's about the conversation. People say that to me all the time. It's fine. It's all about the intent behind it, right?
Are you okay, Shaun? Are you okay?
I'm okay,
sure?
Thank you. I think so.
All right.
In myself, I'm okay. You say you're okay with your eating situation, but that doesn't sort of describe the text that I got last night. I'm never eating again. I think that was at midnight or something.
Let's just say Colonel and I may be falling out for a while. I think I'm not going to call him for a while.
I knew it would happen.
Do you know, honestly, I didn't realise that the boneless banquet had so much chicken in it. And I still feel like I'm eating that chicken 6 days on, or 3 days on, I should say. It was, I won't be going back there in a hurry. Although in saying that...
Is that the 3-2 diet? 3 days off
3
KFC,
2 days off KFC. Yeah, absolutely. That's right.
Okay, well done. Well, basically, that's how I've been, Stephen Scott. Wow, we went off on a tangent there.
I'm not happy at all about something. I know that's nothing. For someone who just said they're very happy, I'm also not happy about things. I can be complicated, all right?
Okay, go on.
So I don't know what happened, when it happened, how it happened, but somewhere on Mastodon, on the social network for blind people,
is that the official tag?
It seems to be.
Okay.
Something's happened because it's turned from being a social media channel into what I would call a blog.
Oh. Okay.
Everyone seems to be
Explain.
writing essays per message these days.
Oh, you know why that is? That's because AI exists.
Oh, no. This is not AI. These are people who have clearly got a lot to say, but have never understood the word brevity. And I know you, and look, before you all come after me, say, well, come on, listen to this guy talking about brevity when he talks for an hour about mince. Well,
yes.
I get your point, but this is a talk show. That's exactly what this platform is for, right? That's what we do here. We talk. But on social media, it was originally set out to be micro-blogging. Remember the idea of just a very short form paragraph which explained a message or sent a message to the world. And what's happened is the character limit on Mastodon seems to have somehow been expanded. And I don't know how this happens, but essentially, there are certain instances that you can attach to. Still don't understand all this. But basically, you connect to an instance and then you're on the Mastodon world. And there are certain people or certain instances that allow you to have more characters per post than others. So I think on mine it's 500.
Okay.
On other ones, they got to 10,000. 10,000.
Right. Characters, though, not words.
No, characters, yes.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, can we really not write these messages, per message, like up to 10,000 characters? Can't people just write in 140 or 280 characters and get... I think if you can't get your point across in 280 characters...
Oh, come on.
Seriously. I mean, if you can't...
Stephen, you're the toot police now, are you?
Absolutely.
Is that what you're saying?
I am tooting and policing all the way.
Don't cancel free speech.
No, I'm cancelling the amount of free speech. You can say what you like, but can you say in 280 characters, please? Because I've got life to lead. And honestly, reading through my Mastodon feed now, it is like reading a series of essays. I feel like I've gone to a WordPress blog and I'm reading every single post on it.
Well, you know what the answer is, don't you? Swipe on. If you don't like what you're hearing,
you're right.
Swipe
you're
on.
Absolutely right. But the problem is, look, first off, someone's written something they clearly want to be read. The problem is I ain't going to read it. I'm not reading it.
You don't have to read every book either.
No, absolutely, but I'm not. But that's the thing. But I'm not going to a bookshop. No one goes to a bookshop and starts at the first book they get to and start reading every single book.
Not every toot is 10,000 characters, is it?
It's getting that way. Have you been on there recently?
Okay. No,
it is
I've got
unbelievable.
To say, I haven't signed into anything yet to get back in there, so I don't know. You may be absolutely true. I always thought, though, when this all started, this micro-blogging with Twitter, I always thought it was really strange to have that limitation of characters.
Oh, don't you start.
And I always find it sort of frustrating.
Look, I think a lot of people find 140 characters difficult.
Is that what it started?
It started off there and then it went up to 280, I think, on Twitter.
That's right.
I think it's moved around a bit since then. I know, for example, if you pay money to Musk, he will give you more characters. That's how it works. You pay money to Musk and he delivers you more characters and you can type more.
Yeah, that doesn't work for me. There's either a reason to have that limitation or not. not just to pay. It's a abstract limitation just to make money. There's either a reason for it, as in we just want people to make one-line statements, or we don't. How many times have I written a tweet back in the day and had to go back through, taking out, I don't know, a character here or there, or replacing the word "to" with the number 2 to try and get it to fit that. I just thought, I just don't want to do this. That's why I sort of got out of it.
Well, I was thinking in some ways that this is where AI could come in, because someone who writes a diatribe on Mastodon, of 10,000 words, could just hit summarize to 280 characters and it'll just do it for us. Would that be brilliant?
Fantastic idea. Yeah, that's really good.
Or, could it be possible that I could have an app like Mona that, it just says, if your post exceeds the following number of characters, summarize it. I'd like that. I'd like that, please, because otherwise I'm unfollowing you. I can't do it anymore. I'm not sitting.
You don't have to unfollow.
Reading.
Just swipe on.
It's just nonsense. But if I'm not reading anything, what's the point? What's the point of even being on there?
There might be a really interesting article on there that you think, what? I'm glad I stopped and read.
Article. It's not an article site. It's
Why
social
not?
media.
It could be whatever. It could be whatever you want it to be, Steve.
I don't want it to be that.
If people want to. Well, sorry. Well, start your own social media platform then. Okay, good. That's that sorted. I'm trying to think of a name as well. Scott, something.
Double tap social. There you go.
Scott Shaun Media.
Scott Shaun Media.
No, Scotia.
Scotia.
We'll work on that.
Scotia.
Feedback at
That's nice. Because that's like Nova Scotia, right, in Canada?
That's right.
See, yes. we got them in. We love you, Canada.
Love you, Canada.
Love you all. Speaking of which, incidentally,
yes.
IRA has just announced that they're going to be available in Ottawa International Airport. Just announced that that's another airport that's been added to their partner list. So basically, if you're walking around, if you're going to Ottawa Airport, you can use IRA in there and it won't affect your minutes.
For free?
Yeah, for free.
Yeah, there's so many places you can use IRA for free, actually. It's so worth going to the website and checking out the list there, depending on what country you're in, obviously. But there's so many airports and things like that where you don't have to worry about that 5-minute rush to get things done.
Yeah.
I do that all the time. I get onto the agent, I say, right, I've only got 5 minutes, so if we could be as quick as I can. I don't mean to be rude, but let's get on with it.
Yeah, exactly. I know. It's like, I don't want to care what you had for dinner last night. Let's not talk KFC today. Let's move on. No, it's a very good. See, again, the brevity is a really important thing there, isn't it, Shaun? Yeah. So anyway, to my point about the Mastodon thing, I think I looked up. I thought to myself, okay, let me think about something which would be a good. Let's find some compromise here, okay? Because clearly there are a lot of people who want to write a lot of things. Okay, so fair enough. All right, let's figure this out. So I looked at a piece of text that I thought would be a good example of something that was very important. So you can't say, well, that wasn't important. It was important. And something that was written with brevity. And I immediately thought of the Gettysburg Address.
Of course. That's the first thing that comes to my mind as well.
272 words. How many characters is that? 1,500. There you go. That's my number. 1,500. There's your max. 10,000, ridiculous.
Hang on, but what if someone's about to write the next Gettysburg Address, right?
Well, there's plenty of characters. You've got 1,500. That's how long it took or how much it took to write the Gettysburg Address. If you want to rewrite the Gettysburg Address, you have plenty of room.
Okay. Let us know what you think about Stephen's idea. Feedback at doubletaponair.com. He's ridiculous.
And don't write the Gettysburg Address. I don't know, it's probably out of copyright now. I can
Every email we get now is going to be 10,000 characters. Sorry, Laura.
Well, that's right. Laura has to deal with that. You see, I will say it's one of those, it's not a problem until it happens to somebody else. But that, again, I just think it's the platform. And is that what you want on the platform? Do you want it to be the kind of platform where it's basically just... I think it's just a diatribe with the greatest of respect. We're not dealing with... this is not philosophical thinkers here having a conversation. It's just people having a chat. And every thought does not have to pour out of your brain and have to, emerge into this 10,000 character nonsense.
It could be a conversation starter.
I don't know. I saw someone the other day who I think was quite keen on this idea of the almost like removal of character limits. And they said something that was really interesting. This is a person who's for this. Said, I couldn't possibly listen to my screen reader anything less than 95%, or I'd never get anything done in my day going through this Mastodon site. And this is someone who's for the character limits, and you're having to listen to things at that speed because it's the only way you'll get through it. And I think it's just a waste of time, because if most people are not going to read that, I'm sorry, they're not. Most people are not going to sit and listen through all that because there's too much to get through.
Well,
You're only going to listen
agree.
to like 3 posts a day if you start that.
If every single post was an essay, I totally agree with you. It would just put me off. But it depends on the ratio. I don't know what it is.
Hmm?
Oh, okay. Okay. What's the matter? Sorry, what was that?
I don't know. Right, look, today on the show, we actually do, I mean, this is honestly the craziest show you'll ever listen to, but, equally, we do get into some serious conversations, thank goodness. As Mr. F says, thanks to Shaun for keeping us on the rails.
Mr. F.
You're welcome, Mr. F.
I'll remember that one. But we're going to move on because we have a fantastic conversation now that we had with Lacey.
Here we go.
Lilienfeld.
Well done.
Thank you. Who we spoke to last week for the show, and we got the chance to talk to her. She's a product manager over at Google, and she talked to us all about Google Gemini and Talkback. Now, I have been playing with this a lot more. I was on Facebook the other day. Facebook and Android's a bit weird because you have these weird, I don't know, it's just, I don't know. I mean, it's all accessible and fine, but it's just, it seems to have a lot more elements to it than the iOS version has. When you're swiping from one post to the next, there seems to be some.
Does that mean it's more accessible because it's going through every element?
Possibly, I don't know. There seems to be like some kind of, I would say it's almost like a little drawer, as it calls it, that kind of comes up between the posts. I don't know if that's to enable more features
and everything else.
I don't know. I don't know how it works, but yeah, it seemed a bit different. Anyway, the point was, got to images, and the one thing that I was a bit unsure about with this, the one thing I couldn't quite get into my very small brain, which can only handle 280 characters at a time, was that, how do you get focused on an image? Like in Facebook, for example, your focus is on a post, right? Or on a specific post. It's not on the actual image itself. And I thought, that's going to be a challenge, right? So I thought, how do you get the focus on the image? And so I was on Facebook, just on the home page, on the home feed, and I get to a post with an image in it. It tells me there's an image in there. And I thought, okay, let me just do the angular gesture. I prefer those. So up, right, up comes the Talkback menu, and describe images up top. Double tap on that, and it read the description of the image. And I thought, that's really nice. So it just gets it from there.
I'm waiting for the but.
No, there was no but at all. And you know what? It was lovely. It was fast. It was responsive. I'm doing this on the Motorola G54, not on a Pixel, not on a latest edition device.
Yep.
But I found it really, really good. So, I've got to say that, they've done a great job here.
It sounds like it, yeah. That's what I was wondering as well, because sometimes it's difficult. Do you need to open the post up and then navigate to the picture itself? I'm pretty sure I've tried using Be My Eyes in that context before and had to actually open up like full screen the photo and do it that way. I can't actually remember, but there was something like that. It was a little bit more work than I would like. That sounds just so easy.
Oh, it is, honestly. Now, interestingly, on the voiceover rotor, and I don't know if this is new to iOS 18 or I've just noticed it, there is a describe images under the rotor now. So as you move through the screen, or you go, I was on the home screen actually, and it came up with it. As I moved around the rotor, it said describe images, and it said on. Now, I don't know what that is in relation to, is this an AI thing? Is it just...
Well, that's interesting. What model are you running it? Is that a Pro, a 15 Pro?
That's on the 15 Pro Max. Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if it's available. Is that part of the Apple Intelligence features that are coming in? Are you running 18.1?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm running whatever the latest is. It was 18.0.01 or something. 0.1, I think is the latest.
Maybe it is. Honestly, I don't know. But I have voice over recognition turned on. And in that, I have the image description turned on. So when I'm in Facebook and I'm swiping through, I'll listen to a post and it has a picture on it. And once it's finished reading all those end elements, such as likes and, whatever to WhatsApp, share to WhatsApp, after that, it will do a little beep to tell me that voice over recognition is describing something, and it will describe the image afterwards. Now, when I say it'll describe the image, it's very basic compared to AI.
Yeah.
It's not going to give you a Be My Eyes level. But usually it's enough for me. I just kind of, it's kind of like the Meta Ray-Bans, right? I don't care about pictures, but now I've got an easy way to take them. I kind of more interested. It's kind of the same thing with images on websites or on social media. Before, I just didn't care. Sometimes I would turn off navigate images anyway, so it just
It's the
skip it.
same, yeah. I always turned that off. No, I don't.
Yeah,
No, I don't. But I mean, I think if there was a way that I could, I mean, I think when Apple start to build this in, and there's no reason why they shouldn't or can't. I mean, I feel that, you know, the fact Google have gone ahead and done this may push Apple to bring this feature out sooner than they may have wanted to, which is good. I mean, but equally, if it's in there in this new beta that's coming up or whatever, I don't know, that could be quite interesting. But I just thought that was quite an interesting find in the rotor. I didn't know that was there. I had never seen it before, to my knowledge.
I can't
and the fact that it's
There's
on
so
or
many
off
things in there.
is kind of interesting, right? It's not like it's you have to do anything. It's just if it grabs an image, it will just describe it for you. But I think you're right. I think it's going to be that very basic description at this point. Anyway, let's talk Google. But first, if you want to get in touch with the show, as always, we'd love to hear from you. Feedback at doubletaponair.com or call 1-877-803-4567. WhatsApp is coming soon. I promise you. We are final. We're not far away from it. I promise you. Let's just say it's someone else's fault. But yes, coming up next,
Let's
we'll
always
talk
say
Google.
that.
Call the Double Tappers now, 1-877-803-4567, or email us, feedback at doubletaponair.com.
Now, Shaun, from time to time here on Double Tap, we do like to delve into the world of Android. Yes, Android, over there, the Google people. And you know what, Shaun, we have a Google person with us today on our show.
I know. I think it's the fact that you refer to them as Google people that maybe keeps them away. Yes, but
Actually, no, hang on. As far as we'll get confirmation of this in a second, but I believe they call themselves Googlers.
Do they?
That's
well,
what I've
we'll
heard.
find out.
Lisi Lillenfeld, I think I got that right, is with us from Google. I do apologize, Lisi. Did I get that right?
Lillienfeld. Very
close enough. Okay, there we go. So not quite. Thank you, Lisi. Great to have you with us here on Double Tap. It's a bit chaotic over here. I apologize for everything in advance.
No worries. Good to be here.
Now, you are a product manager at Android, or for Android at Google. Are you called Googlers? Is that what you call yourselves?
Yes.
See, told you.
You
Shaun.
are quite right. Okay, I take it all back. That's far better than those Google people, I must say. Googlers, I'll remember that. Thanks.
Listen, thank you so much for coming on. I've got to say, major props to you and your team for an amazing release of Talkback 15 this year. In particular, I think the headline topic we have to talk about is image descriptions now being available through Gemini. It's a fantastic feature. It's turned a lot of heads in our community. Those of us who are iPhone users have been saying for a long time, it'd be cool to have a simple way to do this on the iPhone. Google comes along, bang, there you go. You can do it. How did it come about? How did you marry Gemini and Talkback? Was it a nice service?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think across the tech industry, obviously, there's a lot of enthusiasm about generative AI and looking for the right applications. So, of course, in accessibility, we're thinking, how can we apply this new technology to unlock functionality that wasn't possible before? And we really saw this as kind of the beginning, the first thing that we could do that would really take advantage of the new technology to provide more functionality for our users.
And how does this actually work? I haven't tried this feature out yet. How does it work? Is it done processed locally? Is it sent off to the cloud?
Very good question. A little bit of both.
Oh.
So the way that it works, so the on-device Gemini Nano is only available on the newest Pixel devices. It's a hardware limitation. So for the devices where it's supported, we do have the option to run the on-device model. But we wanted to also make this available more broadly to users on other devices. And so for that, we have the server-side model. So yes and yes.
Very good. Yeah. That's something we have talked about after the Pixel event. That was, the AI, as Stephen alluded to before, the AI everywhere. And the fact that, so many devices have access to this AI in Talkback, it is, I think a lot of people really appreciate that. It's not just a case, only this model, only this handset, only at this time, only if you're standing on your head. It's a case of, a lot of people are going to get their hands on this and be able to try it out.
Yes, and just in case anybody's wondering, the server-side model processes the images and then deletes them immediately, so they're not getting stored or anything. They just need to be sent to the model so the description can be generated. That's all.
That's very nice.
And there's going to be a little bit of difference in latency and lag, if you like, between on-device processing and sending off to the cloud. But are we talking what, seconds, if anything?
So there's a difference, but actually the server-side one is faster.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you know, it's funny. It's funny you say that, right? Because I was kind of wondering, because obviously in a sense you've got a lot more power on the server side, so it's really just the internet connection that's between you, right? So if that's solid, then arguably we get faster than you can get on device. Which I guess this is the new challenge for AI more generally, isn't it? That ultimately the power of our smartphones is going to increase and increase and increase, and eventually we'll get to that level. But that's going to take time. Whereas obviously a server farm's been built over time, and it has that power. I mean, in terms of this, is this just one idea you've got for Gemini and Talkback, and I guess accessibility more generally, or are you seeing potential ways that this could expand further into Talkback in particular?
We have many, many ideas. I'm not at liberty to comment on any particulars.
Oh, come on.
I know. But, everybody's very excited about what these models can do currently and what they can do in the future. And obviously, we always look to the newest technology to see what new capabilities we can provide.
Well, it's interesting. There does seem to be a bit of a AI gold rush at the minute. Everyone's rushing towards AI. It's a bit like when everything was smart, right? Everything was a smart toothbrush, a smart toilet, a smart whatever it may be back in the day. Now everything is AI powered. But do you see this, where do you see this in relationship to a screen reader such as Talkback? Is there any crossover, as in, do you think the AI becomes the main driving technology behind the screen reader at any point, or is it always going to be an additional tool, another function, if you like, that screen readers can jump out to?
That's a great question. And I think this really gets to the core of what we're trying to understand with generative AI is what it does well, what it can do reliably, what users trust it to do. We want to use it for those things and not beyond that. So for now, right, we understand that screen readers need to be very reliable and predictable. And so that's why right now it's doing what it's doing, right? It's not being powered by generative AI. As the model capability improves, we'll see what the right application is. But we always are kind of balancing the innovation with also the dependability and the trust.
Can I ask a little bit more about the image descriptions themselves? Because, I guess everyone has a view on what an image description is. How do you know how much to give as an image description? How do you prompt it essentially to give it an image description which gives enough information that gives you the sense of what you're actually looking at?
That's such a good question, because we do understand that the amount of detail somebody wants might be personal. It might depend on the context. It's not so straightforward. But one thing that we noticed early on is that Gemini seems to be very good at starting with the kind of high-level impression and then going into the details. And that works beautifully for Talkback because it lets the user hear as much as they want to hear, and then they can just navigate to the next element and move on.
And because the image is being processed on device or on Google's servers, can you allow for, let's say, for example, it's an image of a grandfather with his granddaughter on his knee. As we've actually talked about before on the show, we've actually had someone get in touch with exactly that example. And when they ran it through other AIs, it would come back with, an elderly gentleman sitting with a young child on his knee, but it doesn't say who he is. It doesn't identify him, doesn't identify his granddaughter. Is that something you're able to do with Gemini and Talkback together at this point?
That's such a great question. Gemini is fairly good at celebrities.
Okay.
So if the older person was like publicly a recognizable person, it might actually be able to catch that. Now, if you're talking about somebody who's not famous, who's just somebody in your family, that's a really interesting question because, of course, I see the user value. I also think about, though, how would the user communicate that to Google, and would the user be comfortable sending images? Would the grandfather be comfortable sending images, right? A lot of times there are these trade-offs between functionality and privacy, and we want to provide the functionality and we want to respect the privacy. So that's what I think of in reaction to your suggestion, is just like that it would have to be done carefully.
Because it is a deeper level of
Totally.
what we want sometimes as blind people, especially because we need that information. We want that information. Well, I think if you are someone who's been taking pictures of your family and you want to be able to have them described back to you, then you absolutely want that.
I mean, if it says, a fat balding man, I know it's me, right? I mean,
it could be me.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Good point. Yeah, but I don't wear sunglasses.
Now you don't know who's who. Okay, the glasses give it away, right? Okay, fine.
But that's an interesting point, though, right? Is there a difference between describing an image for, a mainstream audience than a blind person? I suppose the answer is, well, a sighted person isn't going to be using Talkback. But, I mean, just generally using Gemini AI, is there a difference in the description that you get back, I mean?
That's an ethical question.
Kind of. I don't know.
It's a good question, right? Because image descriptions are used for other purposes, right? Maybe I just want to compare two images, and maybe it's easier to compare the descriptions than it is to compare the images, right? In any sort of batch processing, right? There's so many different ways that image descriptions could be used, and you're right that different kinds of descriptions would be useful in different contexts.
But the images that are used in Google through Google Gemini and Talkback together are not stored. They're not used for training the algorithm or training the AI or any of that stuff, right?
Right.
Okay,
why not? You weren't expecting a backlash about that, were you?
I wasn't. No. I wasn't.
No. Just from a technical, I'm interested. I mean, is it a stage that, hey, we've had enough images now, we don't need to train it, or are you training it on other sources and don't? Because I think that is the main concern when it comes to AI, right? Everyone just, first thing they say is, well, what happens to the things that I'm sharing, the things that I'm asking, or the things that I'm sending to it? So privacy is a big deal. But I mean, personally, I don't have an issue with any of my stuff being used to train AI. I want AI to be better. So is this just purely because this is, better looking not to use images to train, or is it you just don't need the data?
That's a really good question. I think that the scale that we would be getting from Talkback is probably not going to make or break the next generation of AI models, is one, right, why? Also, we do respect the user's privacy, and especially because we know in this situation, the user probably doesn't know what's in the image until they're already sending it. That's a situation where we want to be extra respectful of privacy, right? A different application where the user already knows what's in the image, maybe that's a situation where we would get some value from collecting those images, but this is not one of those situations, and we really respect privacy.
Great
point.
Yeah,
that's actually a very good point. Yeah, you don't know what's in the image until it's away. That's a good point. It seems to me that there's a great hunger for this kind of feature now in the blind community, and it's brought photos to life for a lot of blind people, which is kind of amazing, isn't it? That a year ago I would not have really cared about an image on a website. If it didn't have alt text on it, I wouldn't have bothered about it. If it had alt text, great, but I wasn't looking for it. Now there's a huge demand for alt text. There's a huge demand for the ability to describe images. And now, of course, building that into Talkback is huge. Are you getting that sense as well from the community that use Google devices, that use Talkback?
The phrase that we keep hearing is that it's a game changer. And that just, I'm thrilled. Every time I hear a comment like that, really, it makes me feel like we're putting our effort where it matters.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we can't get enough of it. I'm interested, and Stephen's probably going to shout at me afterwards for asking this question. And honestly, if it goes too technical, feel free to say, no, you won't understand, Shaun, because I probably won't. But I'm really interested in when else am I going to be able to ask this question of the Nano, right? The AI, what do you call it, model, I suppose, that runs on the device versus the one that runs on the server farms. I'm assuming, I can't quite understand, does that contain every object in the world, like a cuckoo clock or a plate or a tricycle or whatever? And I mean, how does it recognize and describe an image knowing what objects are?
You could probably get a more specific explanation from somebody else, but to the best of my knowledge, the process involves training the model server side, and then what they call distilling it down to kind of like condense all of that information into a smaller model.
Okay.
So it should understand all of the same things, but in that kind of condensing process, it's going to lose a little bit of precision.
Okay.
I must admit, I don't think any of us really understand how any of this stuff really works. We just kind of just love that it does, right?
But we're seeing it so many more times now. When the companies are unveiling their AI, we're seeing these different versions. Maybe not so much, end user, but in the developer conferences, we're seeing, 11. Is it gigabyte or terabyte models, that run on the servers, and 3 terabyte or gigabyte ones that run on devices. And we had a listener who emailed in and said, how can you get all those objects that could be in a picture into a database and fit that onto your phone? And we say, oh, well, it
right,
just
because
does.
it's not the actual photos. It's kind of this vectorized phase space abstracted understanding of these things.
Oh, it's magic. Thank you very much. That's all I needed to hear.
I'm going to run that through Gemini after this and figure out what that means. Write this as a 3-year-old would understand it. That's what I'm writing after this, because that is incredible. And it is amazing. It fascinates me. It blows me away. I do not understand it all. I don't pretend to, but I love it. And I love the fact that it does work. Here's a question for you. Can you, I believe at this point you can't, but would you consider following or being able to follow up on an image? So, you get an image description, you think, okay, it's mentioned that there's a cake on the table. Which kind of cake is that exactly? These are the kind of questions I would ask, Lacey. So, what kind of cake is it? And, you could sort of follow up and get that detail. Is that possible, or is that coming, or is that a thing?
So what I can tell you is that it is the kind of thing that Gemini can do. If you're in the Gemini app and you upload a photo and you ask for a description, you could ask Gemini for follow-ups. So technically, the capability exists. Also, I want to comment that I appreciate the feedback, and I'll even say that actually we have a tester program specifically for people with disabilities who want to test products and give early feedback. So if either you or any of your listeners are interested, google.com/accessibility has the link. I believe you kind of scroll down and it says like participate in a tester program. If folks are interested, that is precisely the kind of suggestions that we are interested and excited in hearing, because it does inform what things we choose to build.
Okay, but here's a great follow-up question to that. At least I think it is. So if I can go to the Gemini app, obviously using Talkback and it's all accessible and that's all cool. I go to the Gemini app and I upload the image. Do I get a similar image description from it that I do from Talkback?
That's a good question. Yes, it should be very similar.
Okay, so you kind of have a back door to that. I mean, it's not much of a back door. I mean, it's fairly open, right? It's still the front door, actually, yeah. Really, but it is possible right now, just not directly through Talkback, but you could do it through the Gemini app. That's pretty cool.
And that's actually something that we talked about, is that like lots of things are possible with Gemini, but when we put the model in a particular context, that does change the user's expectation about how reliable it will be or how appropriate it will be for the situation. And so that's kind of why Gemini isn't immediately everywhere doing everything, because, right, it may or may not be exceptionally well suited to particular situations. And so that's why for something like Talkback, we start with image descriptions and we can kind of validate, okay, this performs well in this situation, and we can kind of scale it out in an intentional way just to make sure that the quality is really there.
So do you, I don't know how to phrase this, do you package either the information you send, the image you send, or the response back to say, look, this is a visually impaired person, asking this question, instead of just sending the image straight off to the Gemini AI and it just putting back the, standard answers, kind of what I asked before, really. Is it phrased or framed in a way that, hey, this is the response is for a blind person?
That's a great question. I'm guessing that our actual prompt is probably secret sauce, but but you certainly can prompt Gemini either give me a description, or with more context about who it's for. I will say that when I've tried mentioning for the word blind specifically, that does tend to trip its like medical advice flag, and then it's, it always is saying, talk with your doctor. I can't give medical advice. So that I've noticed that happens sometimes, but certainly we can play around with the prompting to try to get it to focus on certain things, and we obviously do that with our audience in mind.
And how much free rein are you giving it? I mean, that's, again, this is the balancing act that AI companies have got to walk, of how much freedom you give the AI so it doesn't offend or be inappropriate at all. But that's the things that really sort of frustrate us. I've been using the Meta Ray-Bans, and every time I ask it if there's something in my way, I cannot give safety advice. It won't describe anyone in front of me. And I get that. You don't want it to misdescribe? That doesn't sound right. You don't want it to describe someone in an offensive way, for example. So it just doesn't bother. But that may be something that's really important to me. And, a sighted person can see the person anyway. So why is it that AI just seems to leave me out of it? It's that kind of frustration that I totally understand why the safety rails are there. But how do you judge how much to give it its own free rein?
So actually, I've got a great example for you on this one.
Okay.
Because this is where actually Talkback is different than what the Gemini app will give you. On the Gemini app, if you upload a photo of a person, it says that it cannot describe images of people.
Okay.
And one of the requirements that I was like pretty firm about early on was, in the context of Talkback, we have to be able to describe people. And we know that it's sensitive, we understand, but for this user group, the ability to understand that there are people in the image and some details about them it overrides in this circumstance. And so in Talkback, it will give you descriptions of people.
Oh, it's fantastic.
And of course, there's the other side of this, which is censorship to some degree. We've seen this argument a lot with deaf people saying, this is not good when you have captions that are, not giving you, a swear word, for example. It might be a cuss word that comes up and therefore it's blocked out or it's blanked out. And, that's something that's coming up as well. And it is that balance, but it's also treating people as adults. If a child is using the device, I would imagine there are various limitations put on the device so children don't see certain things, in the same way, for adults not having those if they don't want those. Like I don't have kids, so I don't really mind if something shows up, if there's bad language in it. Fine, whatever.
Somebody think of the children. It's all context, though.
House.
It's all context sensitive, as Lisa said there. It's who's using it, how much information do they need. I think most people are grown up. Of course, there's parental controls for anything else, but I mean, all adults can understand that things aren't 100%. Some things may be said that aren't correct. But the information, that's what it's all about. It's vital.
Yeah. Actually, just to respond to the captions one, we think about this stuff all the time. And the captions one, I think the issue is that it's so mortifying when somebody says something appropriate and the captioning accidentally captions it as a swear word, that to avoid that situation, right? Makes sense now. So it's right. We don't want to censor people, but without that kind of feature, it could really embarrass people. And so that's, I think, what's being weighed there. So yes, but we think about this all the time, for sure.
It's been really wonderful talking to you, Lisa. Thank you so much for coming on today and putting up with us, because that's difficult for anybody.
Sorry.
And you'll be desperate to get back to your real work in a minute. But thank you so much for coming on today. Remind people again, because you mentioned there the website for people to become testers of Android and to get involved in all of this. Remind us how people can do that.
Yes, google.com/accessibility, and then scroll down to where it says participate in a tester program.
Lucy, thank you so much for coming on to Double Tap.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Well, wasn't she delightful? I was so pleased to get Lucy on. I think that's the first time we've ever had anyone from the Android team on Double Tap. So, thank you so much for coming on,
Let's hope they'll come back, even though we did fall over her name a couple of times there. But no, really interesting, right? And I'm again, couldn't really talk about any other AI features coming in, but really intrigued to see how they go, because they seem to be handling this and integrating it in a really cool way.
Yeah. Listen, I want to make a quick mention before we go to our good friend Callum Stoneman, who has been a long-time contributor to our show here. And I just want to say hello to him because he's in hospital.
He is, yes.
He was telling us we were due to catch up, and the usual thing is, let's catch up. Yeah, let's catch up. And he called and he said, you might notice, and all I can hear in the background is beep, 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 and sort of.
I know.
And you said,
he was
you
reversing.
said first, are you in hospital? And he's like, yes. So I won't go into the details. Obviously, that's for him to talk about. But, he had a bit of an episode that was very unfortunate. And he's landed himself in hospital, and it seems like he'll have a bit of a long recovery. But just wanted to say hello, Callum. And
Yes.
we hope you're all right. Hope you're feeling okay. Hope that we are now hospital radio for you.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
I know, this is what you're stuck with. I do apologise.
There's no escape.
Well, look, in fairness, he said, listen, I am so glad Double Tap is daily because I need something to entertain me. So I don't know if my rants are entertaining, but if they are, then, well, there you go. You've been entertained. You have been entertained.
We're pain relief. We're almost like sedatives.
That's right.
You're welcome.
Well, certainly a lot of people do fall asleep listening to this show. So, that makes sense.
Get well soon, Callum.
Absolutely.
We're thinking of you. All the best.
I want to get in this quick message from Stan before we go.
Hello, Sean. Hello, Stephen. This is Stan Warren Luttrell. And I just thought that I would commend you on your program on YouTube. I've been doing some interesting things, at least I think they are. Sometimes I will listen using the A-Lady device, but since you've gone on YouTube, on the very first day, the first thing I did was fire up my computer and go over to YouTube and listen that way. And the first 3 days I did that, and then on Thursday, which is the day I'm recording this, after I listened to your program, I decided to listen on the A-Lady device. But here's what may be interesting to you and your future, because I have found, I don't know why, but I have found that I'd rather listen on YouTube than with the A-Lady device. I don't know why I am doing this, but I think that I will continue to listen or watch, whatever you want to say, although since my eyes don't work, I won't be doing a hell of a lot of watching. But it's really nice to listen on YouTube. Take care, everybody, and have an awesome double tapping time.
An awesome double tapping time.
I like that. I like that very much.
The Flintstones that I'm thinking of when I hear that.
Dabba-doo.
Time.
Interesting, though. Do you prefer a certain format to another one? Is there a difference? I know, it does. There's slightly different processing on the video version, so the audio does sound a little bit different, maybe?
Possibly, yeah, because they are edited differently. So yeah, because you deal with the audio edit and I deal with the video edit, and they are processed audibly different.
Which one is better? That's the interesting question. Stephen or Sean, you decide.
They'll love you. No one cares for me. But no, I think I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, because I must admit, I've always felt YouTube is very difficult to navigate, find my way around, find new content. I don't think the algorithm's that great. I don't think it serves you up the best options. I think. You watch one video, you watch a group of videos, and you would imagine you would get tons of videos the same being sort of popped up in front of you. Here's another version of this, or here's another. Yeah. I mean, I watch a lot of keyboard reviews. That may not surprise you. And I don't get that many videos in my feed that say, hey, here's another keyboard you should check out. And I think, really? That's a bit weird, isn't it? Why wouldn't I get that? Why wouldn't that be a thing?
You don't watch it enough, maybe. I think the algorithm actually works well. All the things in my feed are things I've watched before. I've got a lot of subscriptions, so I don't know if that makes a difference.
Yeah, maybe I don't subscribe. Well, I subscribe to some things. I'll tell you one channel you should definitely subscribe to, and that is Double Tap Video. It's very popular on there, and yeah, you should definitely subscribe.
Please like and subscribe.
Because if you don't, then that's it for us.
Very angry.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. F standing for finished.
Well, of course, on YouTube as well, which I find on the iOS, and from my memory, when I used it last time on Android, was perfectly accessible.
Yeah.
You do have the chapter markers work very well. I'm still struggling to implement them into the audio version. I am still working on it. I'm very sorry. I'm still getting to grips with Reaper, but it will happen eventually.
That's a process, isn't it? I mean, it's quite a thing to change over.
Oh, keyboard shortcuts. And of course, then I said, you know what? Let's swap over to Jules at the same time for more keyboard shortcuts.
Why not?
To try and remember. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
How are you finding Jaws?
But I'm getting there slowly. Yeah, I'm finding Jules absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. I'm loving some of the picture smart features. I do like that. And as I said before, the what's the webcam one called where it tells you if you're centered?
Face in View.
Face in View. I think that is excellent. Yeah. I'm just learning more and more. Yeah, it's very good. And there's so many tutorials in that help menu as well.
Oh my God. Honestly, I used to say years ago, well, the problem here is just there's no tutorials, there's no bite-size handy guides. My goodness, have they sorted that out?
Yeah, they've solved that question.
Yeah.
Not a problem anymore.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Listen, we're back tomorrow with more of your feedback. We'll catch you then. Thank you, Shaun. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.